Welcome to the Night Cat Stories. I appreciate your company, and tonight I've got a very interesting one for you. Before we start, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this, and drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. All right, let's get right into it. This story is called What My Neighbor Hid in the Basement. When the rain finally came, it didn't fall so much as hurl itself at the glass. That's what I remember thinking when I woke at 2:30 to a sledge of raindrops slamming my bedroom window in bursts, as if the storm had found a fist. All day the sky had been blank and brittle, cold, windless, that strange winter stillness where even the air seems to take a breath and hold it. I'd gone to bed under that hush, and now this. I sat up and realized I needed the bathroom. The hallway was a slice of gray, the kind of dark that feels crowded. At the far end, a small window usually rattled when it was windy. Tonight it was calm. Too calm. No whistle in the frame. No tapping tree branch. I almost walked by, then doubled back and unlatched it. Cold air licked my face. Cold, but motionless. Not a thread of wind. I frowned, closed it, used the bathroom and cracked the small pane in there for a look. Same story. The glass was wet. The world was not. The bathroom and my bedroom faced the same side of the house, with a little junk room sandwiched between. So if a storm was hammering my bedroom window, I should have heard it here too. I hurried back. The bedroom sounded like the ocean trying to get in. Rain and gusts brawled against the glass. I reached out and lifted the sash. The wind shoved the room. Papers blew. My cheap blinds snapped and clattered. I stumbled and caught myself on the desk. Breath punched out of me by a cold that didn't feel like weather. It felt intent. Then, as quickly as it had rushed in, the air stopped moving. The quiet came down like a lid. And in that lid, I knew I wasn't alone. I scanned the desk. Between a pen cup and a spiral notebook sat something bright. A shimmer the size of a chess piece. At first I thought it was a trick of the lamp. Then the shimmer shifted, gathered itself, and stood. It was a person, a man but tiny, no taller than my pencil. His hair was the pale of old straw. His skin had that strange light you see on frost. More glow than color. His body flickered like heat above asphalt, as if his edges were the idea of a shape, not really a shape at all. I choked on my own gasp and grabbed the nearest book like it was a shield. The tiny man stared up at me with the doomed look of a deer in a headlight. I lowered the book slowly, arms open. His shoulders slumped with relief. Then he began to cry. Not a human cry exactly. The sound was thin and long and somehow wide. A weeping that pulled at the air. A draft swirled in the room. The pencil rolled off and clinked on the floor. My alarm clock fell, thudding face down on the carpet. Hey, I said, uselessly, and set the book down. I held out my hand, palm up, not expecting anything except maybe more wind. He climbed onto my skin. His feet were a cool pressure. He weighed almost nothing, like a dry cup. I lifted him to eye level and tried to find a sentence that could exist in this moment. My brain chose the worst possible one. I gave him a gentle nudge with my finger, the kind you'd give a bug to see if it's really there. He toppled. "Oh, God, sorry," I blurted, reaching with my other hand. He put up both tiny palms. "No." I froze. "What are you?" I asked. He tried to answer, but the words tumbled out of him like hail. Too many and too fast. Syllables crashing into each other. Breath skipping. Then a phrase surfaced, clear and terrible. "He made me kill him." Despite his size, the voice felt close, like someone speaking into my ear. A shaken whisper, choked and raw. "I didn't want to," he said. "You have to believe me. I only did it because if I didn't, he said he'd keep doing what he does to my sisters." He gulped at air he didn't seem to need. "He's had us trapped for weeks. You can see what he did to me, but my sisters." He broke again, silent sobs that made the hair on my arms lift. "It's okay," I said, and cupped my other hand behind him like a windbreak. He fought for steady speech. "Please, you have to help us. I only did what he said because I couldn't watch it anymore. He hurt them. He cut them. The man next door. He lives to the right of your house." I blinked. "Mr. Larkin?" I'd never learned his first name. We wave at the mailbox. That's the relationship. "You were the only one who felt me," the tiny man said. "I tried other windows. People turned over in bed. They didn't notice. You opened the air." "I'm a light sleeper," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. I slid the bedroom window down with my free hand, and he remained standing in my palm, flickering faintly. "Back up. The man next door captured you. Made you kill someone." "Who?" "I don't know his name," he said. "An older man across town." He laughed. I went in with the laugh, through his mouth. I made his throat forget how to be a throat. He looked at me like he expected a verdict. Shame and terror wrestled in his face. "I believe you," I said. I felt like I was dreaming, but my skin prickled with a kind of awake I hadn't known in years. "What's your name?" He hesitated, Soren. Okay, Soren, I said. What do you need me to do? Go next door. Break the jars. His voice steadied as he spoke, like speaking made him real. He bound us to glass with old words. None of us can touch our own prisons, but you can. Shatter them and the binding breaks. We'll be ourselves again. That's it. Break some jars. Yes. Mine first, he said, and then glanced down at his own faint outline. If mine is even there. It should be, I said. If not, we'll find it. I set him on the desk and pulled on jeans, a hoodie, boots. My house was one big ribcage of creaks, every step a confession. Soren hopped from the desk to my shoulder with a quick silver lightness and braced a hand on my neck. Outside, snow salted the street. The storm that had punched my window had gone somewhere else, or nowhere. Only a starved hush remained, the kind the world makes after it screams. Basement window, Soren whispered near my ear as we crossed my yard. At the back. He keeps us below. We cut behind an old lilac hedge to Mr. Larkin's fence. The gate latch stuck. My gloves squeaked on cold metal. The yard beyond was a blank page, save for the ink of our footprints. Sorry about the prints, I muttered. Wind fixes things, Soren said. The basement window was a squat rectangle half buried in snow. I squatted and brushed away the drift. The sash was old wood, painted too many times and swollen by weather. It didn't budge. I can open it, Soren said. But listen. When you drop into the basement, go straight to the shelves. If we're lucky, he won't be close. Break the empty jar first. That's mine. If I'm free, I can move air. It will help. Got it. He stepped onto the sill, placed both hands flat against the glass and leaned in. For a heartbeat, his body thinned like a flame. Then he was gone from the outside, and there on the other side, a pale shimmer inside the dark well of the basement. A faint click answered the silence. The sash lifted a finger's width. I wedged my gloved fingers in, heaved, and eased it open. I slipped my boots to the cement. The cold in that basement wasn't like outside. It had corners. Soren hovered by my cheek. Go, he whispered. I went. The shelves were crude 2x4s stained with something older than dust. 3 jars sat near the top and one on a lower plank. The glass was thick, old-fashioned, the kind that turns green at the seams. Inside the nearest jar, a girl sat with her knees tucked to her chest, face turned away, hair white like Soren's flicker. Her outline trembled. I didn't think. I smashed the jar on the cement. Glass exploded. The girl shot upward like breath held too long. She hovered, radiant, eyes wide as the room, and vanished toward the ceiling shadow. Empty, Soren said, scanning the shelf. I don't see mine. I grabbed another jar and slammed it. A young woman unfurled from the shards like a ribbon pulled free of a knot, looked at me with a small, unbelieving smile that hurt me to see, and streaked into the dark. Soren's glow sharpened. He moved me, he said. He must have moved me. On the lower shelf, a smaller jar. Inside, a child no bigger than my thumb, standing with her back to the glass. Blood, dark as ink, beaded along two small raw strips at her shoulder blades. Blue tissue lay on the glass floor behind her like torn paper. I leaned close and realized they were wings, or had been. My grip trembled. The jar slipped from my glove and cracked instead of breaking. No, no. I snatched it up and hurled it hard. Glass surrendered. The child rose without sound, turned in the air, and her eyes found mine. I swear I felt a small hand on my cheek, a cool thank you without words. Then she went where her sisters had gone. Footsteps thundered above. A door flew open at the top of the stairs. Mr. Larkin wasn't a villain out of a storybook. He looked like the kind of neighbor who returns your packages. Gray sweater, house shoes, tired eyes. You, he said, not angry so much as surprised. His gaze dropped to the glittering air and the broken jars. When he saw Soren, the surprise turned to something rough. No, 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 what are you doing? He came down the steps too fast, one hand braced on the rail and the other clutching a jar I hadn't seen on the shelves. He swung around me toward the washer, set the jar down with shaking care, and then grabbed a fist of my hair. I don't want to hurt you, he hissed. You live next door. Please, go home. You have no idea what they are. What are they? I asked. Victims? They're not like us, he said, voice pitched high with a brittle conviction that scared me more than anger would have. Do you know what a loose storm can do? A wildfire? An avalanche? These things aren't meant to walk free in neighborhoods. I'm keeping you safe. By what? Ripping wings off children? My voice cracked. That one heals fast, he said too quickly, which told me he had seen the bleeding enough to make a terrible assumption. I read the words. I did it right. The old rights bind them. It's work, hard work, but someone has to. I jammed my boot into his shin. He yelped and loosened his grip. I lunged for the jar on the washer. He snatched for it. For a breath, we were two magnets trying to decide how to meet. I won by the thickness of a fingernail, swung the glass in an arc, and threw. It hit the cinder block wall and went to stars. Air found a mouth. The basement inhaled. Loose bottles, a rolled rug, a basket of cold laundry, all rose a few inches, quivered, and then whipped into motion. The wind was not a wind, it was a decision. It threaded between me and the broken glass like it knew my outline, tugged at my sleeves and stopped, climbed the stairs in a white hiss and came back down with more of itself. I stumbled backward and pressed against the shelves. Snowflakes came through the broken window in a slow, dreamlike parade. Except they weren't slow. Everything else had simply become fast. The room throbbed. I heard a scream that might have been mine, and wasn't. In the eye of the whirl stood Mr. Larkin, his sweater flapping, his hair blown back, his mouth a small O of shock and fury. Something lifted him, set him down, lifted him again, as if testing from which angle he would be easiest to carry. The air sharpened. I saw the moment it chose. I looked away. When the storm let go, the room fell. Laundry thudded, bottles shattered, shards tinkled to a halt. A quiet blanket of powder drifted down like the end of a shaken snow globe. Mr. Larkin lay very still. The wound in him didn't look like a wound a person makes. Nature isn't surgical. It's thorough. Over him stood a figure the height of the ceiling, Soren, no longer small. He was the length and width of a man drawn with a line of light. Long arms, long face, eyes like thin, pale coins. He glanced down at himself as if trying on a coat, and smoothed his hands over his chest with an expression I can only call relief. He looked at me and smiled the smallest smile. "You'll regret this," he said, tilting his head, "if I let you." He watched my face for fear, and then softened. "You don't have to. You're a good neighbor." He stepped forward and picked me up like I weighed what I felt like I weighed. Not much. One arm behind my knees, one at my back, and the gray stairwell slid by. He carried me through the dim house and out into the quiet yard. "It isn't a monster you freed," he said, voice low enough to feel more than hear. "It's a system. We're a system. We're old. We belong to weather the way fish belong to water." Someone read halfway through a dangerous book and decided to be a hero. He set me gently on my own snow. It squeaked. I realized I was shaking, and that my shaking had little to do with cold. "You have earthquakes," he said. "Tsunamis, blizzards. You survive them. You adapt. The earth doesn't hate you. It barely notices you, and when it does, it loves you in ways that scare you. We're part of that. We don't fit in jars." He glanced back toward the house. "I'm going to fix what can be fixed," he said. "Not for him. For the street, Will." My voice came back as a fragment. I swallowed. be okay?" "Yes," he said. "You did what you could with the information you had. That's all anyone ever does." He guided me to my front steps, turned me toward my own door, and then hesitated with his hand still on my shoulder, like someone deciding if a hug is welcome. "Thank you," he said, "for hearing me when I was small. Not many do." He walked back across the yards. Halfway, his feet forgot to be feet, and he lifted an inch, then a foot, then simply wasn't concerned with ground anymore. He rose into where the night loses detail. His outlines stretched thin, unspooled, became a suggestion. For a moment he was a taller darkness among darknesses, and then the darkness agreed with him, and he vanished. What came next was not a storm like weathermen talk about. It had less sound than that. It was the sort of thing old trees understand. It put its hand on the house next door and leaned. Nails said something small. Wood said something old in reply, and then broke. The roof let go of arguments it had been holding. The wall sighed last words and sat down. My phone buzzed with a neighborhood alert. I didn't look. In the morning, we gathered in coats to pretend we were surprised. People pointed and made circles with their mouths. No one said Mr. Larkin's name. No one said mine. I kept seeing a jar on a washer, a child's bare shoulders, 2 strips of blue like paper. When the wind skimmed the street, it sounded like a voice saying a shape that might have been my name and might have been a thank you. That day I did not do much. I walked once, late, when the plows had pushed up dirty berms and the sky had returned to brittle. Somewhere in the skinny branches along the sidewalk, frost caught the last weak light and blinked like small eyes. A breeze lifted and carried a whisper I could almost understand. "I owe you," it said, and moved on. I slept badly for a week. Every time the bedroom window sighed, I held my breath. Once or twice the hallway window rattled where it hadn't before, as if something tested it, approved, and left it alone. Eventually the nerves rewired. Humans repair themselves the way cities do. Not perfectly, but enough to be busy again. I didn't know what Mr. Larkin thought he was saving us from. Maybe he'd had a storm once that took something he couldn't live without and decided to punish weather with a hobby. Maybe a book convinced him he deserved credit. We tell ourselves stories to make the air behave. Sometimes the air listens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it asks a favor in the middle of the night and you say yes, because you've always been a light sleeper. And that's what the world needed from you that night. Not a hero, Weeks later, after the insurance men and the city men and the men with clipboards had finished circling what used to be a house, crews came to remove the last of it. I stood at my window with a mug and watched dust settle on snow like powdered sugar. The wind rose and lifted it back up again, placed it somewhere better, and kept going. I cracked the sash just enough to feel the cold tooth of the morning on my face. "I owe you," the air said again, patient and precise, the way a devoted student repeats a new phrase until it fits the mouth. It said it once. Then it said nothing, and I shut the window against a calm so complete I could hear my own breath and, for the first time since the night of the jars, I slept. Thank you so much for listening tonight. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to share your thoughts down below. I always love reading your comments. And if you have any story recommendations for future videos, I'd really love to hear them. Goodbye for now, but we'll meet again soon.